Hi everybody, welcome to Flames Pyro Art Pyrography for beginners. Today we're going to have a look at some dog's eyes. A lot of people in the groups who are new to pyrography seem to struggle a little sometimes with trying to create, a nice shaped glossy effect eye. So today I thought we would have a look and see if I can give you some hints and tips on how to achieve a better looking eye. So I've stenciled out the French Bulldog and I did start some work on it yesterday. But today I thought we'll have a look at this eye together and see if we can help you to learn a little of how it's done. So when we're thinking about dog's eyes, they're not flat, are they, like any eyeball? It's shaped more ovular, isn't it? So what we have to do is try and recreate, recreate the shape and depth by different darknesses of burning. Always with dog's eyes, you will find that under the top lid is where it will be at its most darkest. So I don't know if I'd mentioned I'm using the Optima Pyrography machine, and this is the medium space shader, and I'm currently at setting about 2.5 on the machine because we don't want to burn it too strongly. So the thing we're looking for when doing a glassy eye is to build it up slowly over time. Try and create the shape and depth to the eyeball that the eye is looking to see. So what I usually do is I start off on the outer edges, moving with the shape that I'm trying to achieve. Taking your time to try and get it neat. You will have to move your wood quite often, so you're going to have to bear with me. The wood will be moving quite often because you do need to move your wood around as you're burning. And any piece of art, you will often find you need to keep turning your wood so you can actually get at the angle that you want to burn at. It's almost impossible to burn a full portrait with it face on in front of you. It's just not going to happen. So you have to keep turning your wood. Hopefully I'm not blocking you, am I? So with pyrography, it is very much an art form of patience. What we do to create more realistic pyrography work is we take a great deal of time at a lower heat and build up layers of heat. That's what we call layering. Some people call it blocking in or whatever, but blocking in is just when you're putting in like a base coat. But when you're doing things like an eye, it's all about layering. And taking your time. Capturing the highlights is also a very big part of making an eye look realistic. So if you think about this French Bulldog's eye, it's going to be curving over, isn't it? So it stands to reason, doesn't it, that the furthest point of this eye is going to be over here on its outside edge. So we want that to be the darkest area. To in effect to push back this particular part of this French's eyeball. For some reason he's got a weird white line that runs around the outside edge of his eye. And we can get some of this inside detail in. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way for you. Always when you're doing eyes as well on any subject is try and move your burn strokes with the shape of what you're trying to achieve. That way it'll give your mind and your muscle memory a feel for what you're doing. This particular dog has got a highlight running up the outside edge of his eye there, so that is an area that we won't be touching. I know during the lockdown a lot of people have taken up the art form of pyrography. I think it's the fastest growing art form going. I know I started it back in November, December time of 2019, and I've pretty much, bar a week or so, I've done some wood burning pyrography every day since I fell in love with this art form, and practiced to try and get better and better at it. Still always learning. With every artist is still always learning, searching for new bits of knowledge and new looks to make their artwork look even better. So hopefully we'll all be able to learn together through this group. I don't work particularly quickly, so that will help a lot of people. There are some pyrographers don't want to wait, let's say, as long with creating their artwork. They like to turn the heat up higher and churn out the work much more quickly, where I'm of the opposite end of the scale. I'd much rather take my time and create something that I'm happy with. I'm not saying they're not happy with the things they produce, they will be happy, but just my own personal way of creating pyrography is very much to do with patience. So in the early stages of this eye, we're still just building up the outside edges. I may be able to turn this lamp off actually now. Let's see if we can. Let's see if you can still see without the lamp on. Better with it on, I think. Still a bit dark. I'll just have to concentrate a bit more because it's giving me a glare off the wood. But I can work with it. The eyes on any subject that you do are the most important part of any human life or animal subject, because the first thing a person is drawn to is the eyes. So if the eyes look dead and flat, it won't be as appealing than if you make a really nice glossy eye. So that's what you should always try and achieve. The minute, like I said, still building up, slowly working your way in. Building the outside edge of the eyeball. You'll find when you're doing wildlife or dogs or cats or whatever, you'll run into the same things time after time, where the eye always tapers off to a little triangle in the corner, doesn't it? And you will always find that the top and the bottom lid is always darker. As the eyeball meets the lids is where it will go darker. I'm using the tip of the space shader at the moment to build that top bit, using the outside edges and the tips of your tools, of your pens. You'll find there's more heat in the edges compared to the main body of the pen. The tip and the sides carry more heat. No, I can't explain thermodynamics to people. I know a man who can, the man who designs these machines, but I'm not going to try and explain anything to do with that. So we're still just feeling away into this. We don't want to rush. As the teacher who I watch often says, there's no prizes for finishing your piece first. Pyrography is very much a patience art form. Well, it's like any other art medium. You won't find a graphite artist who will take the darkest pencil out of the box straight away and just set to work with it. Likewise, a painter, they won't take the darkest paint out, will they, and just start slapping it on. They build up from a lighter shade and build the depth up, and that's what pyrography is all about. Starting off lighter, and by going over and over the areas, you begin to make some shape and dimension. So as you can see, you have to keep moving the wood around. Don't make it impossible for yourself to get at areas. Move the wood when you need to, so you can keep moving in the shape. And direction that you're trying to achieve. So I just picked this French Bulldog just because it had big eyes, and I thought it'd be a good one to hopefully work on together and be able to show you a few of the techniques. So I'm moving in the direction of the shape that I want it to be. Now as we think about the eye, it's going to be darker there, isn't it? And it's going to come round and be darker under the front lid. Then at this side it's going to be darker here, move up and round, and darker on the outside edge again. So that is what we're trying to achieve. And I find if you turn your heat up too quickly, wanting to rush to get it done, you lose control of what you're trying to do. So I always advise everybody I speak to on the Facebook groups and the likes, turn your heat down. A lot of beginners to pyrography, they make the mistake of having the heat set way too high. Basically charring and scorching the wood. If you do it that way, you're not going to be able to get realistic looking effects. So I'd always say I would rather start off too low on my heat than be too high. Okay, so we're slowly just working our way in. Thinking about the shape now of the eye, as we've discussed. The extreme edges will be darker. As we try and create a glassy mirrored effect. I can spend literally hours on the eyes until I get something that I'm happy with, and it does pay dividends in the end. My wife's an artist as well, and if she ever does come out to my shed, which is my little studio, and she sees the eyes, she said, oh, the eyes look really good. That's because I've spent the time to build them up slowly. So this is the first proper pyrography lesson I'm putting up. We'll see how many people watch this, and if you like the way I teach you, you know, much slower. So we can all work along together. Perhaps you're doing an animal burn of your own at the moment, and you want to burn your subject's eyes. Doesn't matter what kind of dog's eye it is. It's always the same principle. And here we have like a highlight, so we won't be touching that. I think this French bulldog must have had one of them, you know, with the eyes with a white rim around this part. Because the eyeball actually carries on to here. And then we have a little white bit in there where the whites of the pupil are. There's no whites of the pupil, is it? It's not a pupil, the pupil's the black bit. I'm going to stop waffling. So I say I'm using 2/3 of the tip at the minute. I don't want to lay my shader flat, got it on a slight angle. Now I'm using the very tip. Need a steady hand for doing round the lids. As we always say in pyrography, it's much easier to go darker than it is lighter. To go darker we can just keep burning, to go lighter we need to get the sandpaper out. And then it sets you back. So we've got that highlight in here. We're going to try and make a way into towards the highlight. Just going ever so gently. It might look on the camera at the moment that I'm not adding any shading at all, but there is. It's very light. And we're building up the shading. The smoke you're seeing isn't coming from the wood, it's coming from my e-cig. Start moving in a little bit on this. Using more of the flat surface now, the space shader. To work a larger surface area. Still trying to move in a circular shape. Let me see how long we've gone for. At the minute we're at half an hour. We'll do an hour. We won't get the eye done in an hour, but we'll do it over 2 lessons. as you can see with the other eye, I've been building up the darkness on the outside edges. Don't know whereabouts in the world you're all from, anyone who's watching, but I'm in the UK, and last night we had the coldest night for 10 years. Oh, I've got my heater on in the shed, and it's underneath the table, and I'm absolutely cooking, so I've just switched it down a bit. I think they said it got to -10 or something overnight, -10, -12, which for the UK is pretty cold. I have got to nip out and do a few chores in a bit, and I'm just waiting for the car to de-ice a bit. I'm not touching down with the pen flat. I've got it tilted, so I'm just using, say, 3/4 of the tip, because I don't want to be going in that highlight. Move it round again. And you can touch down a bit more as we build a base layer of more inside of the eye. We're still trying to slowly work away to this highlight. Another good advantage of starting off with your heat lower when you're first starting out with any new project you're doing, it gives you the time to build a relationship with the piece of art that you're doing. You know, you get invested into the subject, don't you? So by having your heat lower, it gives you longer to build that muscle memory. And make subtle changes. So there's this highlight. We can go in and add some shading to all this area. as you start building one area. Heat down again. Everything adjusts. What I'll perhaps do is when we reach the hour, I'll switch over. I could switch over to time lapse, and so you could see the rest of the eye come together more quickly than sitting watching me for hours and hours. As I slowly build up all the layers. Another big thing when you're transferring your images to the wood is, unless you're going to be burning very dark, never use carbon paper. I've got a lesson up on how to make your own piece of graphite transfer paper, and you will find that that will rub off very easily with any eraser. I know when I started, I'd buy that really cheap bulk pack of carbon paper, and then I'd start making the artworks and be left with these massive dark outlines, and could I shift them, you need an angle grinder to get the carbon off. It just does not want to come off. So always use graphite transfer paper. And the cheapest way to do it is to make your own piece. If you've got some cheap printer paper, and say a 5B pencil, make your own piece. There's many methods for transferring images onto the wood. using more of the flat bed of the shader at the minute. Yeah, it helps you if you start on the outsides and then start filling in on the inside. It'll help your eyes to see better what depth of shading you need to go to. So that's why I'm now starting to move further into the eye. Can stay away from that highlight. As you practice more and more, you will get more comfortable with using your equipment, using your pens. You'll get more control. And as a rule, I haven't got a steady hand, but when I'm doing pyrography, I've got quite a steady hand then. Again, thinking of the shape, it's got to go darker to lighter to lighter. Try and give the perception of something that is flat, that doesn't look flat. That's what all artists are always searching for, is depth. You may see now at the top, we're starting to build a bit of an effect, keeping it light as we go. So every now and again you want to maybe sit back and look at what you've done to see the effect as it stands. mean, my favourite style of burning is Gothic art, but I can't just sit there burning skulls and things all day, so I taught myself how to do pyrography, portraits of dogs. Currently working on my first proper human piece, but I know that's had the sandpaper on it quite a bit. I've burnt quite a few dogs now, so more practiced at them. The more you practice, the better you will become. I'm a great believer that anybody can do anything they want to, anything in the world. If you want to do it and become good at it, you can make that happen. You think of every professional. I mean, I wouldn't class myself as a top professional. But every professional had to start from where you did and I did and everybody did, right from the beginning. Yes, some maybe had more of a natural ability to pick it up quicker than others. But they still had to put the hours in. I've got no art background whatsoever. If you put a pencil in my hand, I couldn't draw you a graphite portrait. But for some reason I can, because just through sheer determination and practicing, I can use a pyrography machine to a decent enough level now. What time are we up to? Let's have a look, 54 minutes, so go for another 5 minutes and then I'll switch us over to time lapse for the rest of it. So remember the key basics: keep your heat turned down, don't get impatient, and want to see the end result now. It will pay dividends, I promise you, if you keep your heat down. And build your layers up gradually. I promise you it will look so much better. Then if you just get fed up and turn the heat up. Just persevere with layering your eye up. Another trick I learned which was quite a good one sometimes, is when you're doing a piece, if you take a picture of it on your mobile phone and then look at it, it gives you a different perspective for some reason, gives you a different look than when you're staring at it with your eyes. So maybe every now and again take a picture of it on your mobile phone, have a look at that picture, and it'll show you areas where you could possibly improve or alter. And it does actually work. That I was quite surprised when I took pictures of it. It gave me a totally different view of what I was doing. Okay, so I know we haven't got very far today in the hour with the eye, but like I said, pyrography takes time if you want to do it looking realistic. Hopefully it's given you a few pointers. I'll time lapse now the next stages of the eye, and then I'll come back and speak to you a little bit more about what I did. Okay, so there's the start of the French Bulldog's eyes. So there's a long way to go, so I'll switch it over to time lapse and you can see it being born a bit more quickly. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson, and take care everybody, and happy burning. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye for now. Hello again. So we're finishing up with the dog's eyes. As you could see through the time-lapse video, I just spent the time layering up around the edges and some darker patches. What I find is more effective when you're doing dog's eyes, I mean, maybe some more work yet to do on these eyes, but is not to burn the whole eye dark, but to actually leave some of it lighter, and it'll give you a more glassy effect to the eye. So instead of burning the whole thing the same shade, if you leave areas of it lighter, it will give it a more glassy effect. And that is how it's the beginnings of, I mean, I would spend longer yet on the eyes as I started building the rest of the piece, but that is how to make a more effective, realistic looking eye. It took me, what, maybe another hour or more after I did the hour's tutorial, but as you can see, they're coming along well. As I said, as we build the rest of the eyes in, then there will be more further tweaks and shaping done, but just leave yourself that room for maneuver. You know, don't go all out dark straight away, otherwise you give yourself no wiggle room to add any effect to the eye. So that would be my number one tip, is why I said when we start with a lower heat, if we use a lower heat, we've got more room to make adjustments to get the effect we're looking for, more of a smoky effect, than if you were to just crank your heat up high and burn it dark straight away. So hopefully that has shown you a little more of how to create a dog's eyes to start with. You can use that on pretty much cat's eyes the same, and human eyes is slightly different, but the principle is still the same. Leave yourself room for maneuver to leave a glossy effect to the eye. But you have to blend it out. You can't go from black to nothing. You have to very gently blend out your dark to your lighter, and then it will give you a much more striking eye. Once the rest of that portrait was done and I finished the eyes completely, it would give a much better finish than we just to colour the eyes in black and just leave little highlight lines. If you leave more of a lighter shade, you can create the effect of a mirrored look. Okay, so I hope that's helped a few people on the journeys into pyrography and creating more realistic artwork, and have fun with your burning experiments. practice often is the key. Like I said, I have no art background whatsoever. It's just from pure practice and experimentation that I've managed to pick up what I have done over the time. Okay, so this is Neil from Flames Pyro Art Tutorials. If you want to watch more videos that I put up in the future, hit subscribe and I will be posting up more shortly. Okay, thanks guys, happy burning, bye.